Okay, next up we have Dr. Anne Graham Cagney, and I suppose I'm in the Institute about 15 months now, and one of my first assignments when I came was to look after Fulbright and to assist Anne and her colleague John Wall, who's the head of school of the lifelong learning and education here at WIT, to work on getting a US scholar to come into WIT for the first time. And I suppose the Institute really wants to acknowledge Anne's central leading role in terms of bringing those two people to the Institute along with John. So yeah, well-deserved round of applause. She'll be mortified now. There's probably more to come. So yeah, and I suppose I would have worked very closely with Anne. Sometimes I felt I was nearly over in the States with you, myself and John, when we were Skyping with you at various hours of the day, and John found out that I had very colourful language as well. So Anne is a lecturer here in adult learning and development at WIT. She received her Fulbright scholarship in 2013-14 academic year. She spent time at the University of South Florida and also at the University of Georgia at Athens. Yeah, great. And just in terms of Jimmy just being appointed president of the Fulbright Alumni Association, Anne has recently joined their board as well. So that's really good in terms of we now have two people at WIT involved with the Alumni Association. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Anne, and she's going to work her magic with some Prezi here.
Thanks, Marita. Oh, you're a pet. You put it up for me. I wasn't sure. First of all, it's super to see you all here today, and I have to share something with you. This time last year, I was in the middle of nowhere, literally, a place called Lodi in Wisconsin, and I was sitting in front of a computer waiting for my turn to deliver into the Creating Connections day. Can I say, it's funny, it's much harder to do it. Last year, I couldn't see anybody and I couldn't hear anybody, and I thought that was, really difficult. Take it from me, this is much, much more difficult. So without further ado, I've come at this completely differently. So I hope you'll enjoy it, okay? Remember, I only did it last year, so I don't have all the big, huge clatter of stuff that John has, and I don't have all the fancy stats that Tom has. But I have a couple of interesting stories to tell you, and probably some things you shouldn't do, if that makes sense. They're probably... I hope you find it interesting. Before I begin, can I say one thing? And this is significant for me. I don't know of anyone else here, but my head of school is here today. And that's the level of support that I've received from John. John came into the School of Education and Lifelong Learning, and he has made a difference to my life, because when John came into the school, he is the person who encouraged me to go for the Fulbright. And he has supported me every step of the way. And if I was in the States and I was Skyping Marita and John, they were there on the other side. I wasn't talking into a vacuum when they were on the phone or on Skype. So with that, I'll talk to you about my journey, if I can get it to start. So you can see here I'm talking about Gryffindor and the sorting hat. Yeah. What I'm referring to is that I am older than a lot of people here who have a Fulbright, and I'm the first woman in WIT to have a Fulbright. So those things are important to me. But also, I tried to do a PhD many years ago, and life and the universe and everything got in the way, and 4 kids. And I eventually realised that I was never going to get tenure, and I was never really going to get anywhere unless I went back and did a PhD. So I bit the bullet and I went back to TCD and did my PhD. And I was conferred only in 2011. So for those of you who are in the middle of your PhD or towards the end of it, John is absolutely right when he says that it's like being shot out of a gun in terms of the bullet, the velocity of what happens once you try something and it eventually works for you. And Fulbright and the team at Fulbright have been phenomenal. But I do have to say that the RSU team here have been incredible, and incredible to me in what John and I have been trying to do to increase and expand the School of Lifelong Learning over the last 2 years. So my Gryffindor moment, between us we have 6 kids, so you can imagine what it was like in Trinity with all the bodies flying around us. When Marita told us that there was a talk for Fulbright, John said to me, I think you should go, Anne. And I said, I don't know, John. And he said, look, just go and hear what they have to say. So I went. And when I came back, he said, well, what did you think? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, go for it. What have you got to lose? And then I put the application together, and then I was called for interview. And I went back to John and I said, now look what you've got me into. Yeah. So we have a very, very good, supportive relationship, and we've achieved a lot. Okay. So I think it's England they're referring to when they say England and America are two nations separated by the same language. Well, I drove up in my nephew's car, I might add, because I flew into North Carolina and then drove a distance down to Florida. I had no clue how far that was. But anyway, I went to get what I would call petrol, they call gas. First of all, you have to put it into the machine. But then I had a problem. It asked me for my zip code. The only zip code I had was one from a TV program years ago called Beverly Hills 90210. So I thought, I'll flip it. I'll give it a go. It has to work. Luckily, it worked. And I got the gas and the petrol. And we went on our business. Honest to goodness, you've no idea. Anyway, the next point was USF, very new university, and they had these bulls all over the place. And I was thinking, well, what is the thing with the bull? It didn't make sense to me at all. And I actually asked somebody, and you know, when you're a stranger in a strange land, you kind of think about whether you will ask the question. Will it make you look a complete idiot altogether? Apparently, it's a public-funded university. What that means is that the state gave the university the land and they built the university on it. And the fields that they got had bulls on them, and that's where the bull comes from in USF. I thought it was going to be much more, whatever. Okay. Next point is I'm sitting in USF, right, working away, and this thing keeps flashing up on my scene. Alert. Yeah, a tornado. First of all, I'm not even sure still to this day what's the difference between a hurricane and a tornado. All I knew was, holy whatever, I need to get out of here. So I leave the room, and people around me are saying, no, stay. This is the safest building in the whole campus. They'll all be coming in here. Anyway, it didn't happen, but luckily. But I was in the right place, but I didn't know I was. And then finally, this isn't a picture. This is an actual photo my daughter took of Daytona Beach. And she came in April, but I had already been there around the beginning of March, and I could not believe my eyes. What country in the world has traffic lights and two-way transport system on the beach? Yeah, but I really felt the need, those of us who live near the Atlantic will know, I really felt the need to be beside the sea. I had a craving for salt water and cold. Because remember, I was in Florida and there were alligators and all kinds of things. You've no idea. The natural life in that area is quite interesting. But what was I there to do? There were two projects, and the first one was what I intended to do and what actually happened, which is a current theme within most of the Fulbright projects. I had intended to go and work with a particular individual, and my intent was to further develop a model on prospective transformation readiness. What I ended up doing was something that was equally interesting, but was something that that had emerged out of my doctoral work, but they were more interested in that. So I went with the flow, we did that, and we got a good paper out of it, and it's about student and university expectations and outcomes, and how sometimes they don't quite measure up. And in the States, they have a massive problem with keeping students in the system. They call it the leaky pipeline. So after that, I moved on. And before I went to UGA, if you go, and I strongly recommend that you do, you apply for what's called the Scholar Enrichment Program. You have to apply. It's the same competitive process like the Fulbright itself. And what happens is you get an opportunity to meet the other international Fulbright scholars who are in the States. They're brought together. And in my case, we were brought together in UT Austin. So that's some of the guys from Greece and from other parts of the world. And I'm happy to report that they put me the leader of the team, and the WIT leader of our team won. So we won a very prestigious competition with about 50 or 60 Fulbright scholars from around the world. So as I said last year, we rock, we do. We did well. And then the family came to visit. Now, guns are prevalent all over the States, but I don't know. Maybe it was something, they were telling me something, I don't know, but they both decided that they wanted to go to try and shoot. They did quite well. I think that's a bit worrying how well they did, but anyway. The second project was bang on the money from my point of view. I went to work with a professor there in the University of Georgia in Athens, and we're looking at internal and external spaces of learning. In other words, how you change your mind, perspective transformation. How do you accommodate new knowledge, and how do you recalibrate what you already know and integrate it going forward? And that causes changes in the individual. So what we are looking at is a particular doctoral program which has implications for Waterford. John and I are working very hard on creating a structured professional doctorate that will be based on a very distinctive pedagogy, and it's about creating the space for both internal cognitive learning and external behavioural change, and a different kind of a teaching learning environment. So that's a little bit about what I did in UGA. Those two, there are 2 papers being published, and 1 paper is being delivered this June in Cork at the USFHRD conference. And in actual fact, one of the professors that I was working with is coming to visit WIT in June, and we have another visitor next week, all toward developing both the school and Waterford in terms of lifelong learning and education. I went up into the Smoky Mountains. I even went to what they call Dollyville. Did you know there was such a place? Yes. It's in Pigeon Forge. It's up in the mountains, and she reinvested her money, and she really created a Disneyland or Disney World for the hillbillies. And I swear to you, it is hillbilly. Absolutely. I think I stayed one day, stayed overnight, and then got out of there as fast as I could. But incredible in terms of an experience, but a beautiful, beautiful place. I was staying near Athens. So the Athfest happens every year. It's a free festival, free music festival. This is a photograph taken just outside the original place where REM, for some of you are too young to know, but where the original place where REM did their gigs years and years ago. But what's interesting is the girl who's with me, she's a bit unusual looking, isn't she? When my daughter visited, she said to me, "Mum, you have to experience Airbnb." Oh yeah, we did that. That was great. The first 2 were fantastic as we drove up from Florida up to Georgia. We got to stay in Savannah, a beautiful old house. And then then Claire said to me, "Mum, we have a bit of a problem. We have a good place to stay for a few days, but the 2 options we have are a bit, you know." And I said, "Okay, tell me a bit about it." She said, "Well, I'd just prefer you to choose." I should have known when she told me that I had to choose, I was going to be in trouble. Anyway, I choose one, and I don't know. She says that as we drove up in the car, the silence in the car got deeper and deeper and deeper. I don't remember that. All I remember is driving into what looked like an ex-hippie commune with caravans and things parked all over the place, and the most incredible welcome. We did have our coffee in jars. I did have an interesting experience. We did have our coffee in jars. They made the filter coffee in big jam jars, but the coffee was good. But anyway, Katie lives in that house, and she was there at the Fest, and you can't see her, but up on the back, on the left-hand side, the lead singer is the lady who owned the house. Okay. I told you to be different. Okay, the advice to anyone interested in applying. This is pragmatic advice, okay? Number 1, I suggest you have a go. You have absolutely, as John said, you have absolutely nothing to lose. But if you have previous experience in applying for research funding, that helps, even if you have not been successful in gaining the funding. For example, the year before while I got the Fulbright, Valerie Mannix and myself had applied for 6 different sources of funding, and we hadn't got a single one. But the process of refining those applications over and over again and having a go again and again and again, I reckon is one of the reasons why the application to Fulbright was as developed as it was. A strong conceptual framework. John said it, you have to be very focused on what it is you want to do. And have some kind of a history or a track record in it. You don't need to know the answers. You don't even need to know where you're going, just to have a track record of developing a particular line of research or line of thinking, and a presence in your field of interest. If you're at a very early stage, conferences, things like that, but just to have a track record. Work up your ideas. It's more than research. Ask for help. Talk to the 5 of us, run it past Marita, Susie, the others, and give yourself plenty of time, planning. Take a long run at it. And think hard on who to ask for a referee. That was very good advice I got. Because, you know, the referee is critical, because the reference that they're giving you is not just on how good a student you are, it's on the kind of person you are, it's on the kind of relationships you make, and it matters quite a lot. So think it through very, very carefully in terms of what you want the person to say, or what aspect of you want them to take on you. In seeking to explore perspective transformation, which was what I was doing, I didn't realise I was going to experience it myself. So here I was, teaching it, researching it, living it, and then suddenly I went to the States and it was happening to me. And that has changed my teaching when I talk about a disorientating dilemma. Absolutely disorientating. When the first professor I went to work with told me, you don't need to go to international, it's all fixed, don't worry about it. And then I found out that if I didn't have a social security card within a certain period of time, I was going home very fast. So off I went, as you do here, down to the social security office. It was a bit of a shock when I felt like I was going into an airport, because I had to go through, you know, the metal machine and get frisked and everything. Once I got in, it was grand. People were grand. They were very, very nice. When I went back to the university and they asked me, you know, what had happened, the shock and horror on their faces when they heard that the Fulbright scholar had been down at the local social securities office. It was quite interesting. Anyway. Being, knowing and doing. Being is the thinking piece. It's the conceptual piece of getting your ideas and your act together. Knowing is the baseline of knowledge around why something is important to you. But then you have to do it. So if you're serious about your career, if you're serious about your area of research, go do it. And finally, the outcomes. Now remember, I'm only just back since August, but this is what we've achieved since August. I have started an international research project with 5 universities, the USF, UGA and Duke in North Carolina, with Trinity College and Watford, looking at the impact of scholarly awards on faculty in terms of their orientation to engage in collaborative, cross-disciplinary, innovative research. That's IRC funded. I'm looking at North and South faculty in adult and further education with the General Teaching Council of Northern Ireland, that's Scoton's funded. And I have been successful, first time not, this time yes, in having a PhD student, a scholarship, who's looking at action research and professional doctorates for people who work in adult and further education. And the final little piece of research is on IoT faculty engagement. The other things we've achieved, which other people have mentioned, and I'll finish soon, is we have Professor Meg Benke coming this autumn. She's coming to work with John predominantly and Laura Widger on technology-enhanced learning, which is a passion of John's and Laura's. And the second scholar we have coming is Jennifer Schneider, who's a digital literacy expert. To be honest, don't quote me on this, I stole her from Cork. She had met me in USF, and UCC wanted her, and I said, sure, why would you be going there? Sure, come here to us. We'll really look after you, and you know, we'll really support you. I don't know if John knew that, but he's sitting up there looking at me. He knows it now. And 2017, we have a recruitment in progress. Now, that refers back to what Marita was saying about the Skype calls. I can't say I did it deliberately, I accidentally signed WIT up to the Fulbright world. And then I had very, very supportive bosses who said, okay, and they signed on the line. So when I was in the States, we were doing the recruitment and selection for the American Fulbright scholars to come here. And I kept saying to them, oh, well, I'll have to refer back to the team. The team was Marita, me and John. And it was normally at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And the mistake I made was, because it was the first time I had done it, I put that they had to have a letter of invitation from WIT. Can you imagine? So everybody who was applying to us couldn't further their application without this letter. We didn't make that mistake this time. And the other thing that's happening are the with faculty exchanges and research collaborations and program development. We are actually in the middle of arranging for faculty exchanges and collaborative research and program development with UGA, with USF, and with Duke. We also have 3 of what we call the lower level colleges, though they're good colleges. The Georgia Gwinnett College is coming here next year with the Maymester. We have Hillsborough Community College, who have 50,000 students. Imagine a community college with 50,000 students, and that lady is coming here on Saturday to talk to us about bringing her students next May. And we have Columbus State University. So that's all very nice, but the bottom line, cut to the chase, this is what I learned. okay? WIIFM. When you're dealing with Americans, always be aware of the fact that there's a little radio playing in their head and it's called What's in it for me. We talk to people and we work with people and we relate with people, and as a culture we don't generally think about what's in it for us. But they grow from 4 or 5 in the show and tell about me, who I am, what I can do. So the conversation is always in that realm of what's in it for me, and they expect you to be doing the same thing and are quite surprised when you're not. Second one is America time. And then there's the South. America time, if you ask somebody for something, you probably get it between 24 and 48 hours. If you're on the East Coast, Northeast Coast. In the South, you could be waiting 3-4 weeks. So if you're choosing to go to a Southern university, there's a long time lead on getting things delivered, which puts me in mind of the fact that we have quite a lot of American multinational companies here in Ireland. We perform over the top for them. As a people, we deliver on time, to the point, all the time. No wonder they want to come here. It's not just about the tax, it's about the work ethic and the values that exist in our own culture here. Busyness. Yeah, they're busy about being busy. I've learned that. We're sometimes too available. And it speaks to John's point, he's nodding his head, it speaks to John's point about being focused on what's important for you. And if you want to succeed, you have to be focused and you have to put you and your life and your research first. And then the final thing, you're to run when anyone says this to you. If any American says, let me reach out to you, it generally means that you're going to be asked to do something. So I'd suggest, if you hear those words, let me reach out to you, or I'm reaching out to you, at least get prepared to at least step back and consider what's being proposed to you before you leap in, as we do as a nation, and say yes too easily. But it's a fantastic experience. You're absolutely alone. You're a stranger in a strange country. And it's amazing the friendships and the collaborations you make. Sometimes where you least expect them. There are wonderful people there, and they're there to work with you and will collaborate, as evidenced by the collaborations we've created. So a different tack on the experience, but thank you all for your time and your attention.